Sheffield has a near pathological humility. Manchester can't stop talking about itself, whereas Sheffield is a very different place. Some people in Sheffield have a bit of a chip on the shoulder about Leeds. Leeds always gets everything, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Leeds got Channel 4. Leeds still has a Harvey Nichols and a John Lewis.
This feature's called Sum Up Sheffield. So, Dan, how would you sum up Sheffield? What is Sheffield to you? What does it mean?
When I was thinking about how to answer this question, I was thinking the three words that kind of sprung to mind were kind of friendly, humble, and hilly. So, like, friendly is, I mean, I'm a northerner, and northerners are meant to be friendlier than southerners, aren't they? But I think when the first weekend I arrived in Sheffield, I lived in Pitsmoor at the time. I was lodging with somebody in Pitsmoor, and I got the bus down from Pitsmoor to the city centre so I could go and watch football in the city centre. And some people just kind of engaged me in conversation in the upper deck of a bus, and I was surprised by that. I mean, I'm, you know, like I say, I'm a northerner, and you know, northerners are friendly, but I don't think that would have happened back home in Bolton. People just kind of engaged me in conversation, and yeah, I had a nice chat with people and said it was my first weekend in the city. Where should I go? What should I see? That kind of thing. So that was nice. I mean, I know it's a cliche, but you know, people say it's you know, the world, you know, biggest village and that kind of thing. You know, but it does feel like that. It's a big city, but it does have a kind of a feel of a smaller place that is kind of quite friendly, where a lot of people know each other, and I quite like that.
Yeah.
Humble was, my colleague Victoria, she, in a piece that she wrote a while ago, she said that Sheffield has a near pathological humility, right? which kind of is obviously quite funny. And I think it's true. You know, Sheffield has a hell of a lot going for it in terms of its kind of environment, in terms of its musical history, in terms of its kind of heritage and history. But it doesn't tend to kind of broadcast that very much.
Yeah.
Certainly, Bolton's near Manchester, and Manchester kind of does the opposite. Manchester can't stop talking about itself, whereas Sheffield is a very different place. Yeah, and that's. It's kind of endearing that it doesn't want to kind of constantly talk about itself, but I think it probably should, because there's a hell of a lot going for it. And the final one, is hilly. You know, is when I first came to Sheffield, that first kind of few weeks, I couldn't get my head around just how hilly it was. If you go to the train station, literally you head off in any direction, you're heading up a massive hill. And, you know, for the first few weeks, I couldn't get over how kind of out of breath I was. But it actually it's quite good because it makes you fitter. But also, as I've lived here for longer, you realise that it produces a kind of you get incredible views all over the city, like from places like Mersbrook Park, Norfolk Park, Sky Edge, and you know, Parkwood Springs and places like that. And so it produces a really interesting city visually. And once I've got used to the kind of it tiring me out a bit, I really like that.
Yeah, and you kind of almost famously in the Tribune comments, you live at Park Hill.
I do.
So you see those hills every day, don't you? Walk into Leah's yard or whatever.
I mean, I'm very, very lucky. I live on the top floor of Park Hill, and we got, obviously, for anyone who's seen it, we got the big windows and the views out. You know, I can see over to Parkwood Springs, I can see over to the Peak District. I can see the entire city centre in front of me, and it's I'm very, very lucky to live there.
Yeah, and you speak about, you know, the humility and you know, the friendliness of Sheffield. Do you think the friendliness kind of works into that humility because people are so fond and friendly of each other to try and keep it inside Sheffield as such?
Yeah. I mean, we've done quite a few pieces about that idea about it being quite. It's a little bit separate from other places. It feels it because it's not particularly well connected, like transport wise. You know, we're not that well connected to Manchester. You know, you got to go over Snake Pass basically, or Woodhead Pass, and you know, and we're not on like kind of, you know, a lot of the trains that come up from London go straight into Leeds. So it feels like it's kind of a bit separated off from the rest of the country in a way, and that's kind of produced lots of interesting things like. For example, last week we had a piece by Daniel Dillon-Ray, the music journalist, about how Sheffield music has developed in a very unique way. We've had pieces in the past about how its food scene has developed in a unique way. A lot of the bigger restaurants that are in Manchester and Leeds don't have restaurants here, and it's meant that the restaurant offer here is a bit different and a bit unique. Sheffield feels like quite a different place than those places, and we did a piece last year about speaking to somebody from Manchester about who's originally from Sheffield, and he says what Sheffield has, it should try and keep hold of what it is. It shouldn't try and emulate Manchester and Leeds. It should try and keep hold of the uniqueness that it has, and to try and kind of emphasise that and sell itself on that, because that's really special.
Yeah, I think so. And do you think, have you observed kind of over the last 5 years or even longer that you've been in Sheffield, do you think that Sheffield has started selling itself more? And do you think it's getting out there a bit more?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, like you say, we work at Lears Yard, and there's a lot of positive things going on in the city centre, and I think the council and the combined authority are very, very keen to sell Sheffield to the outside world a bit more, because if, for example, like Manchester and Leeds, they will attract people from a wider area, whereas we maybe attract people to Sheffield less well. So I think there's definitely an attempt to try and sell Sheffield a bit better. But yeah, it's kind of funny because, how do you, trying to market Sheffield? There's a bit in Sheffield, I think, that feels like, well, if you don't like it, well, we're not going to sell it to you. That kind of thing. There's a bit of a stubbornness. If you don't like it, it's fair enough, stay away. Whereas, I think, which is nice, but I think it could maybe do to get over that a bit.
I think it's something I've observed for kind of like as long as I remember almost, but Sheffield has that village feel and people love that, and they love all the independence, and they love, that we have places like Lears Yard and independent businesses and creators and communities and things like the Tribune. But on the opposite hand, they also aspire to be like every other city. It's why don't we have the Harvey Nichols? Why has John Lewis left Sheffield and things like that? It kind of like it contradicts itself in some respects. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah. I'm slightly worried about saying this as an outsider, but sometimes it feels like some people in Sheffield you speak to about, say, for example, Leeds, have a bit of a chip on the shoulder about Leeds. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, grumble that, Leeds always gets everything. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Leeds got Channel 4. Leeds still has a Harvey Nichols and a John Lewis, which, I can understand. But like I say, I don't think we want to be like Leeds and Manchester. But to have a few more of those things would be great, definitely.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to REYT wherever you get your podcasts. It's completely free, and it's the best way to make sure you never miss a conversation. And also, wherever you get your podcast, please drop a review. A nice 5-star review really helps us get seen in the algorithm of these things. I'll not go into it. It's just complex and confusing. REYT is the independent Sheffield podcast powered by Sheffield Forum at sheffieldforum.co.uk for everything Sheffield. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.